Now we're going to take a look at one of the more creative aspects here inside of Photoshop, and we're going to create a nice little photo snapshot effect here inside of Photoshop on an image. So I'm going to go ahead and close this image up. I'm going to select Don't Save. I'm going to come back into Bridge, and I'm going to select martine.jpg. So when I open this image up here, I'm going to switch to the Move tool just to get that brush off my screen. I did that simply by hitting the V key on my keyboard. I'm going to also make sure that my foreground and background colors are defaulted to black and white by hitting the D key on my keyboard. Now I'm going to zoom in on this image just a little bit here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a nice little snapshot effect on this image where only a portion of the image is in color, and it's surrounded by a small white border, almost like we had a photograph inside of a photograph. So in order to do this, the first thing I need to do is create my little frame that I'm going to be using for this image. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to grab the vector shape tools, making sure I have the square or rectangular shape tool selected. I'm going to draw out a nice box like so. Just making sure that it's kind of looking like the dimensions of a photograph. You don't have to be precise with these measurements. You could do this at whatever size and shape you wanted. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this in position just right over his face like so. And I'm also going to give this a little bit of a tilt. So I'm going to bring up Free Transform by using Command or Control T on my keyboard, and then I'm just going to rotate this ever so slightly to the right. Then I'm going to hit Enter to commit to those changes. And now I'm going to come over here to the Layers panel, and what I need to do now is I need to get rid of this big black square, because obviously we don't want a big square right over the main portion of our image. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take down this object's fill opacity. Don't use the regular opacity, make sure you're using the fill opacity. And we're doing that simply because if you adjust the fill opacity versus regular opacity, you'll still be able to view any layer styles that you apply to this. And we are going to be using a layer style here. We're going to be adding a stroke to this in just a moment. So you always want to make sure that you use fill opacity when you're going to be using layer styles. So we'll go ahead and we'll just drag this back to 0 by using the scrubby slider here. And once we have that at 0, you should not see that black box at all. Now we're going to add our layer style by coming down here and clicking on the layer style icon and choosing stroke. Now by default it's going to come up with this ugly red color that we really don't want to use. So we're going to click on that color box right there and we're going to change this to white. I'm going to go ahead then and click OK. I'm going to set my position here to inside, and I'm going to increase my size quite a bit. I'm going to increase my size probably to about 20. And once I have that set to 20, I can then, if I wanted to, adjust the opacity of this. But for this, I really want it to be a solid border so it'll look like a photographic print. And then I'm going to come over here, let me move this back in, and I'm going to click OK. So now we have our nice little snapshot centered right there over his face. And what I want to do now is create the desaturated portion of this image. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to Control click on the PC, Command click on the Mac on this vector shape icon right here. When I do that, it's going to load the shape of that vector square as a selection. Now it's going to be a little bit hard to see because you've got the outline of the path already surrounding that area, but there is an active selection there. And so what I'm going to do now is come down here to the adjustment layer icon and I'm going to choose black and white. Now by default here it's going to be set to having this black and white adjustment on the inside of our photograph, and that's not what we want. We want it on the outside, but we can fix that in just a moment. For now though, let's go ahead and adjust this tonality to exactly what we want it to be. So for instance, let's go ahead and pick just one of these filters here. Maybe the green filter might look nice. We'll go ahead and choose that right there. Go ahead and click OK. And now, to get this to where only what's inside of that snapshot is in color and the background is black and white, go ahead then and just hit Control-I on the PC, Command-I on the Mac, and you'll automatically get that nice snapshot right inside of the original photograph where only that portion is in color, the rest is in black and white. And then the last part of this, you're going to go ahead and Command-click to select both of these. On PC, it would be Shift click to select both of those. And what we're going to do now is we're going to link these objects together. So we're going to come up here to the little flyout menu and we're just going to choose Link Layers like so. So now anytime I move either one of these, resize either one of these, it's always going to follow with the others. So let's go ahead now, bring up Control T, Command T on the Mac to bring up Free Transform, and let's just increase the size of this a little bit. We could also adjust the rotation of this if we wanted to. Then go ahead and click Enter to commit to those changes. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to come back to the layer style icon and we're going to add a drop shadow to that frame that we created. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm just going to click and drag to reposition my drop shadow in here. That's one of the little known tricks about the layer styles, about drop shadows, is that you can click and position your drop shadow inside of the image window itself. You don't have to worry about adjusting this little angle slider here. And then I'm going to increase the size of this, and then we'll just go ahead and click OK, and that's just going to add a little bit of depth to this. And now you'll notice anywhere I move this, everything is going to follow with it. So everywhere I move this, whatever is inside of that square is going to be in color. Whatever is outside of that square is going to be black and white. It's just a very interesting way to create this little composition here inside of Photoshop.